I'm Marcus Benjamin bringing you the Benjamin Report as Miami closes its season with a 31-24 loss to the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. It's a disappointing way to end the season. This was a season that Miami had a bunch of promise kind of going into it. Cristobal's second year. You got a full recruiting class under your belt. And it started out great. It started out great with a 4-0, and then all of a sudden things just started to revert back to years past once they lost to Georgia Tech and other losses came throughout the seasons. And now with this bowl loss, there are a couple of things that kind of came to mind for me in this game. But just first, to kind of just recap this game, this was a game of runs, right? Rutgers started out with a 14-0 lead. Miami storms back and makes it a 17-14 game. And then, Rutgers kind of has a run of their own, making it a 31-17 game. Miami scores a late touchdown and cannot come back to complete the comeback as they run out of time. The first thing that kind of jumped out to me in this game was that first run by Cal Monungai. This guy breaks off a 22-yard run, and you're like, oh, well, Miami's in trouble here. And Miami has been doing well stopping the run all year. They're number one in the ACC. So it was surprising to see the running back, Cal Monungai, just run all over the Hurricanes as they did. I mean, yes, he is the top rusher in all of the Big Ten, but still, Miami's been stout against the run. And I do understand, yeah, you're without a Leonard Taylor, who has been a consistent starter throughout the season. A bunch of other players not playing in this game, but I don't think that's really any excuse to let a running back run wild the way he did, because obviously you were game planning for this player. If you following CanesCounty.com at all, then you know that I pointed out that this is the guy that they will be focusing on. And I'm sure they were plenty focused on trying to shut down Monungai. They just couldn't do it. So that is just disappointing in itself. But this game to me came down to some critical mistakes or some critical plays altogether. I mean, it came down to basically, sorry, phone ringing here. It came down to just basically three critical mistakes for me. First, it was that interception by Jakari Brown. It was just kind of threw it right to him. He obviously didn't see him, and it was a situation where that interception led to a touchdown for Rutgers. Then it was the block punt, which feels like a turnover in itself. Block punts do, and that was a direct result of a score. And then the fourth down play with about 10 minutes left, where Miami turns the ball over on downs, and Rutgers pursue uh, ends up basically scoring another field goal. And so that's 17 points. And to me, that was pretty much the difference in this game. So when you start out with basically the going behind the eight ball on those plays, it's kind of hard for a team like Miami missing a bunch of players to recover. And let's first talk about that block punt, because that was atrocious as far as protecting the punter from punting the football. Player from Rutgers basically gets a free run, and ultimately the Scarlet Knights score a touchdown. Can't have that happen. This is the type of game that they could not make these type of mistakes. And these two teams, top to bottom, were pretty evenly matched as far as talent is concerned, I think, from top to bottom. It's just Miami just made more mistakes than Rutgers did. Miami couldn't force a turnover in this game, unfortunately. So, um, with the turnovers that I mentioned, the turnover on downs, the block punt that felt like a turnover, and the interception, you're basically giving the opposition an advantage. And I think Miami was actually gifted to, well, some critical penalties in the first half, which allowed Miami to get into the red zone for the first time in the afternoon, and Jakari Brown scores on a run. But if it wasn't for those penalties, who knows if Miami gets into the red zone in all of the first half. That kind of shifted things for Miami going forward. But if those critical errors don't happen for Miami, I think Miami finds a way to win this game. But let's talk about that fourth down. I mean, that fourth down play, you would think that Shannon Dawson would probably draw up something a little bit more creative on that fourth down play. Ends up being just a run to the left, which was stuffed. And with two critical offensive linemen out, it's hard to believe that Miami would have made that first down, 10 out of 10 times, because everybody in the stadium and everybody watching around the country was expecting a run on fourth and short. So I'm expecting Shannon Dawson to draw up something more creative, to where he can maybe hit the tight end, uh, like on a short pass, or running back on a short pass, or put it in Jakari Brown's hands where he can make a play with his legs. But on to Jakari Brown, man. It's clear to me why he was the third string quarterback, why they chose to redshirt him, and he's a decent quarterback, has some athleticism, has a strong arm. You saw him, start off the game with an excellent throw downfield that Jacoby George just couldn't make the play. He has the tools, just not ready yet. Jakari Brown is just not ready to be a college quarterback because, for one, I just think he should have used his legs a lot more here. I think the overall game plan offensively should have been more run heavy. I think if it was pretty split down the middle as far as plays are concerned. They ran 63 total plays with 32 rushes. That's basically a split down the middle. I would have liked to seen a majority of running plays in this one, because Jakari Brown, just he just couldn't connect on a few critical throws. I think there were moments where he should have ran the ball with more assertiveness, and like, or just kind of went through his reads a little bit quicker, where he could just run for a few yards. Um, but that wasn't the case. I mean, overall, he put his team in a position where they could win the game, but this is not yet a difference maker by any stretch. He could one day become that, though. So it'll be interesting to see kind of where he goes, or if he chooses to stay at Miami. I see a lot of potential in Jakari Brown. I just feel like he's just not there when it comes to decision making, as of yet, or with accuracy. I think there was a couple of times where he just missed on some throws. It could have been some miscommunication. I mean, obviously, he's been running with the scout team for the majority of the year, and it's going to take some time to develop some chemistry with receivers, especially when you don't have a Colby Young out there, who's no longer with the team. But I definitely do have to shout out Xavier Restrepo, man. Xavier Restrepo is legit. He's definitely a legit wide receiver who will be, I think, on the next level as an NFL caliber receiver. He makes tough catches, and he seems like he's the only wide receiver open out there, to be honest. Jacoby George at times does get open, but we saw in this game that Jacoby George seems like he not so much focused on just football here, and sometimes he gets his emotions get the best of him. We saw that with two personal foul penalties. The holding call, I think, was kind of a questionable one. I think the opposing player really just fell, and he just kind of fell on him. I think that could have gone either way, but the personal fouls is what you don't want to see. And then also the play where he dropped looked like a sure catch. Luckily, it was a forward pass that could have been an utter disaster. George was just not himself, I think, in this game. But Xavier Restrepo, he's Mr. Reliable in this game. And besides Jakari Brown making plays with his legs at times and through the air, it was Xavier Restrepo who was putting this team in a position to possibly win this game. And yeah, I do know that Miami was missing a bunch of players, of course, and this is not what Hurricanes fans really want to see here. But I do feel like Cristobal is still moving this team in the right direction, especially with recruiting. He's an outstanding recruiter, but you want to see more creativity as far as the play calling is concerned. I think Gidry did a decent job of containing Rutgers. But like I said earlier, the one job was to stop Monangai, and they couldn't do that. They weren't really. I think we all knew that Rutgers wasn't really a big passing team. They focus on running the football, but Miami just, for whatever reason, just could not stop the run of Rutgers, and that was ultimately the difference in the game. Because after that fourth down play, they were able to grind out some minutes to ultimately seal this game. So I do want to say that the fan base does need to be patient. I also have to shout out Ruben Bain as well. He had another great game. I believe he had 3 tackles for loss in this one, and the potential is just through the roof for Ruben Bain. So he, to me, was the standout on defense. Like to see Daryl Porter out there. To me, is the number one corner on the team and had some plays in the passing game. So definitely excited to see what Porter will do next year in 2024. I think he's pretty much a lock for the CB1 position. And then Francis Malgoa, of course, is Francisco Malgoa, excuse me, is of course always around the football. So excited to see him next year and really kind of take that next step. But I think Miami still needs a quarterback. They need a quarterback desperately here. And they need a veteran, not someone who they're trying to groom or is going to learn or develop over the course of a season. You need a guy who can win right now, because Miami does have the talent to win. And yeah, you're losing Javion Cohen, a Cameron Kinchins, a James Williams, and a Matt Lee. Those are key contributors. Kobe Young, like I mentioned, Don Chaney, you're losing. Those are the key guys that you are losing, but you have a solid core and a solid culture building here. So I think Miami just needs a quarterback to really be a game changer. They can't be like a game manager out there, which Jakari Brown did today. He managed the game pretty well, except for that interception. But for the most part, I think he took care of the football and put his team in position to make plays. But Miami needs a quarterback that's better than that. A quarterback that can really make plays, can be a difference maker, that can throw guys open, and not just throw balls to Xavier Restrepo from the slot position. So Miami needs some game-changing players, and hopefully a couple of those will appear either via the transfer portal or through recruiting. But clearly, Miami's not there yet. But I think I'm happy to say that this is the floor for Miami going forward with Cristobal. 7 wins, I think, is pretty much safe to say that this is the floor for the Miami Hurricanes going forward. I do expect another improvement next year, as long as they get the quarterback they need to be a game changer for the Miami Hurricanes. But overall, yeah, it's a disappointment with this Pinstripe Bowl loss to Rutgers because this was a one-dimensional type of offense, and Miami failed to stop that one dimension, which was the running game. But that is going to wrap it up for the Benjamin report. And I'd love to hear your comments uh, here on this YouTube channel, and of course, go to canescounty.com for more University of Miami athletics content.